How's it going? In this video we're going to take a look at the sink in the kitchen. We're going to take a look at the outside kitchen, the black tank flush, as well as where the city water connection comes in. I still have a few more connections I need to fix, but for the most part this will give you a pretty good idea of what you're up against, and I encourage you to check your own. Alright, so how's it going? I'm in the RV and I'm doing some inspections. One of the biggest problems that we have with some of the newer RVs is the water connections. And this spot underneath the sink is a great example, so that's what I want to show you today. A lot of manufacturers, even the big ones, the ones that you might not even expect, are all doing it. And so there are some manufacturers that are doing it correct, but it's a really good thing that people should be aware of. And it could cause a lot of damage if you don't resolve this quickly. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's just get some water going. Over here on the left, you see these fittings. These are all proper PEX fittings. This is all PEX. That's a proper PEX. Where they went wrong is where they made the PEX connection over to the flex tubing. That's just wrong. So I don't know why they did this, but it's ridiculous. So they leave the RV owners to have to deal with this stuff, and what they'll say is, well, we don't really have enough recalls under warranty in order to justify making the change. Well, what if you've got an RV that's just a couple years old like we do? Look at that thing, it's just leaking. You see it? There it goes, drip drip drip. So let me see if I get the camera there. Look at this thing, and maybe you can even hear it. You hear it? What you're hearing is the water pressure leak out. So it's leaking there. That is disgusting. And I've seen some stories of people who have their underbellies that get filled with water, or behind their walls, areas that you just can't see. There's just no excuse for this. You can't do it in residential. It's actually against code. So why would you think that you could do this in an RV? I'm going to cut the flex tube and I'm going to replace it with the proper PEX tubing. Just ridiculous. So here's another look at it again. I'm not holding the light this time, so it's a little easier, and I've turned off these valves, so and my pump. So I'm going to cut these fittings off here and here, and then I'm just going to basically put some PEX tubing. If you only had one color, it really doesn't matter. You could use blue for both, or red for both. It doesn't really matter. I happen to have both blue and red, just because I like to have some extra. So I'm just going to replace the whole thing. Right here, this is designed for a PEX fitting right here, and a PEX fitting right here. See, on this side, this is all pre-made, and so that's fine. You can do that, but what you can't do is this. I just don't even understand why they would do that. Like, it doesn't even make sense. I mean, when you're a mass producer, the amount of money you're saving here is so small compared to what you're doing to an RV owner, especially those who aren't like me, who comb through every little detail to look for screw-ups like this. It's just inexcusable. Alright, just make sure you put your PEX fittings ahead of time, otherwise you'll be mad at yourself because you'll have to refit it. You don't want it to be too snug, but you don't want it to be too loose either. So obviously I measured these before. Oops, it's a little easier to put this side on first. And it really doesn't matter what color you use, it's just kind of nice, so you know. KZ, Venture, whatever you want to call yourself. How hard is that? Like, I mean, is it really that hard? So I'm just going to take my PEX tool here. You can get these on Amazon. So I'm just going to take this here. Setting 2, if you can see that, is for cutting your cinch. And so I'm going to change it to 1, and that's for cinching. All right. Okay. kind of not easy on your back. Okay, that one's good. You don't want it to go too low, but you don't want it too high either. Not hard, folks. Just going to repeat this process over here. I'll try to put this in an angle so you can actually see it. There you go. So, just going to put that on there. You have to make sure you have the cinch all the way open. And just squeeze it. That's all there is to it, folks. And this one over here is on the back side. This one's going to be a little more fun. Sorry about that. There, she's all better. I just want to punch somebody. No, I don't. But I am very angry. All right. So, let's see what we got. Turn my pump back on. Turn some water on. So the pump is building pressure right now. All right, so I'm going to turn the water on. So what it was doing before is you could hear it leaking air, but you could also see it dripping. It looks so much better right now. So pumping away. I'm going to turn the water off in a second here and just see if we can hear any air leaking. So not only did we fix the leaks, my water pump's not going to be kicking on a regular basis because it's holding pressure, and that's what you want. This is what it's supposed to look like, folks. So when you go buy an RV, if you have those fittings, the flex tubing, you just have to have the proper fittings. But you can't go PEX right here to the flex tubing, which is what we started off with. Like, what is really sad about that is they obviously know that because they put all PEX here. They just cut corners, and that's bad for you, RV owner, RV manufacturer. Shame on you. You're the one that has to sleep at night for doing this to your customers. Not good. I'm finishing up the job here in the outside kitchen, and all these connections are in areas that unless you remove your refrigerator, you're likely not going to see it. So I'm going to show you really what I was doing back here and some of the different connections, because there really isn't sort of a one solution fits all in order to go from PEX to the vinyl flex tubing. I know some people have probably done some things out there, but if you do your research, there really isn't a great solution for that, so you have to use a hodgepodge of different materials. Anyways, let's take a look at that. All right, so here's what we got. This is the flex tubing, right? That's a PEX connector, and that's a PEX cinch clamp. That's correct, but this is not. This is only for PEX. And see, they did it for the hot and cold, and that's a problem. Here's what was in here before. They had all this vinyl flex tubing connected right here. This goes to the outside kitchen. This was connected right here all the way over, and it had the PEX fittings, and it was dripping. Not bad, but over time, over many years, there's wood down there, and it's going to see, and this stuff right here is basically plywood, like 1/8 or something like that. But if it soaks into that, it's definitely going to warp it and cause damage, and you just don't want that, especially from the floor. So what I've done is I've taken these little fittings right here. I have saved a couple, so I'll show you here. So you can see that I've removed this. Actually, this right here was from the black tank flush, and I still have one more to fix. I don't use this a ton. I probably could have done this a different way, but I like this because it's PEX all the way up to the termination. I did have to add an extra piece of wood just for support, and then I supported it here. There was, there's a stud here. This screw was into the stud, so I just figured add 2 more there and secure it. And so now this is pretty secure right here. So PEX tubing is rated about 160 psi, and when you have these cinched, you can trust those pretty reliably. There's been people who've done testing even with water temps in RV up to 120 degrees and never found any leaking. So I feel pretty confident about that. And so after making these connections right here, same thing. When you go from PEX over to the flex tubing, they don't really have a lot of options. There are a few. You can watch some videos out there. All right, so hopefully you can see this. So what I've done is I bought these 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch FNPT female swivel adapters. So what these do, these are actually PEX fittings, and I actually ran out of my PEX cinch clamps, but you get the idea. So 1/2 inch PEX clamp you would put over here, and this would go in here. And again, you want to make sure if you look at how I've done that connection, you would put this here. And then what I chose to do is use one of these little nylon adapters as well. And this goes in, if I can hold on to things. And so what I've done is use, it's tight quarters. I probably could have taken this inside. And again, so here you're going to use, you have to use a regular hose clamp. And what you want to do is, you're going to need some tools. Get one of these I-crimp tools, or there's other tools like this, but cut that off, get a nice 90 degree. And then once you do that, you'll put this in here like that. It'll be much more snug. There you go. And you're going to want to tighten this down fairly tight so it doesn't leak. Don't over tighten it. As long as you snug it up, it shouldn't leak. But the difference is between these and a PEX fitting. Let me see if I can get a PEX fitting. Here we go. These right here are what they call barbed. It's a barb fitting, and when you put the hose clamp on here, it's going to grip against these. This right here is a PEX fitting, and it does look similar, but it's not. If you notice, this is more of a ribbed, and this one right here, these are just sort of round, and this will secure that cinch clamp whenever you put the PEX on there. But you really can't you have to make sure you have the right kind of connection. And that's what they were doing, is the manufacturers are using improper connections. What they're doing is putting this, and look how much slack is in here. So they're using these kind of connections. Look how loose this is. And then they're putting that PEX cinch clamp on here. That's just not going to work. It's just not secure, and you really can't get that tight enough. So what you want is an actual real true 1/2 inch where it's going to make a nice seal. And that's what I've done. And then once you have this in here, this has a rubber gasket in there, if you can see that. That makes a really nice seal whenever you go in there. You can get these in brass. I just chose plastic. Both should work just fine. The brass is going to be more expensive, a little easier to work with, just because it's metal, and when you wrench it, it's just going to be stronger. Anyway, that's what I chose to do in this setting right here. And if you have these vinyl flex hose tubing connected using these kind of clamps right there, that's incorrect. Make sure you address those, otherwise you're going to have some leaks. Another one is out here on the city water connection coming in, so you could have high pressure coming in there. Of course, you should always use a water pressure regulator, but if you don't, you could definitely have a problem. Even with the regulator, you could have an issue. In fact, I did. I was leaking again. It's really disappointing. So I'm going to turn this camera around so you can see what I'm talking about. This is your city water where it goes in. And what was there, I'm going to get some better lighting here, is this with, again, PEX fittings. What are you doing, Venture? So this was here with PEX fittings, and you can't do flex hose with PEX fittings. This was leaking right here on that flex hose with the PEX fitting, and it's going to leak because it's not a proper fitting. I just checked it out again after I put the proper PEX tubing on there with the cinch clamps. Again, this was terminated on both sides here, like this. You can tell, I'm not making this up. Look at this. That's what it was. All right, well, that was a lot of work. I hope you appreciate some of my grumbling and complaining I was doing underneath my breath in the video, but I think you can probably understand why I was frustrated, because if I didn't fix that, it would certainly cause some damage. I think about people out there that may not be capable of doing DIY jobs themselves, but I hope this video helps somebody else. Until next time, happy camping.